Hey everybody, welcome back to your free TV. It is Thursday, May 29th, 2025. We are back in it with the massive news that just never ends under the Trump incredible administration. So we're going to jump in here with the news, but I will first start with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. I want to first say thank you to everybody supporting the channel. You make it happen. I'm so grateful. Thank you for Barbara to joining the support team monthly. People who support monthly just really help me know what's going on, for how many videos I can do, etc. So thank you so much, and we'll jump in here with the news. So I'm going to start today. We woke up, of course, with the reciprocal tariffs being banned and unlawful by they've shopped it around every court they could find of the deep state Soros-funded judges across the nation there, Florida up to the New York federal, international trade court, all of this. And we woke up to the reciprocal trades being banned. And now what do we have? The appellate court coming out and saying, nope, that's paused, and the reciprocal trade tariffs can continue on while we look at this case, etc. And so we're going through this unprecedented judicial coup that has been the rollout of the Soros funding of the judiciary in this country for the last, 10 years, but really massively the last 6 years. And of course, they're doing this across the world in every country where there is a populist movement to dislodge globalist control. However, the appellate court has now paused it. Trump, his executive powers are going through, and we're going to get into that. And we're going to start here with something a little interesting because, of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation is huge, and Trump's geopolitical realignment is huge. And it's so important that we understand that what is driving his administration here to take out the power of the globalists has so much to do with the geopolitical realignment and a hemispheric defense position that he is taking. So I'm going to jump in there, but I want to start with something that I've been wanting to talk about for a year. And it's, I think, humorous, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but I'm going to start with that before I jump deeper into the Russia stuff, the trade stuff, and so much more, so much great news that's happening. HHS, banning great things, pardons, all of this happening, plus, the pardons that didn't happen of the auto pen, etc. So let's jump in. I've been watching on, whenever I watch shows on Real America's Voice, there's always this commercial that comes on, and I'm sure you've seen it if you watch Real America's Voice, or other channels like it, Newsmax, others, where there's this international coalition of Christians and Jews, okay, and they're always trying to raise money for these remaining Holocaust survivors that are like 96, 98, 100 years old, and they want you to give $25 for emergency food boxes. And I know it sounds whatever. I have to laugh because it's always hysterical to me. They talk about people like this woman, Galina. She's 96 years old. Okay, she's 96, somehow made it to 96, but she's starving. Okay, and she barely has gray hair. They show her living in a place where she has to, do her washing in this soup pot of gross. Okay, that's on the floor. It's just a bucket. She barely has any food, and they want you to give her, they want your money so that you can, and they say it's from former Soviet countries, these Holocaust surviving Jews that are from former Soviet countries, read Ukraine. Okay, and it's the international coalition of Christians and Jews, read Zionists, that's what that coalition is, and that they want you to give money. It's never for, here's this 110-year-old Armenian that survived the Armenian genocide, right, against the Christians. No, it's always this, and it's always massively around Passover or Hanukkah or something. But what it just always cracks me up. And so I don't know why I had to say that, but I just I've been wanting to say it on this channel for a while. This ad for, please, this is your last chance before these people who are 96 and 100 years old die to give us money so that we can give them a box of $25 worth of food that will save their lives because they're starving. And they always say they are not religious Jews. They never were. Their parents died in the Holocaust, and they disavowed their religion. But please give them money. I know it's crazy, but I can't link it below. But just go to watch Real America's Voice anytime, and you'll see that ad. And I just had to start with that today for some reason. It's been on my mind. So okay, well, that aside, let's move into the situation. And when I mentioned they're always from former Soviet bloc countries, is the anti-Russia theme, right? Mike Huckabee, he's always making money on it. He's the ambassador to Israel right now. On that commercial, he appears, so I'm assuming he's making money on it. And of course, what did we have? We had, Trump sending Kristi Noem over to talk to Netanyahu, saying, "You're not going to attack Iran. We are dialing this down. It's going to stop." And what did we have today? We have the agreement of Israel saying that they are going to agree to the 60-day peace situation here with Gaza, Hamas, all of this, and not bomb the crap out of Iran, right? And this is while the talks are continuing with Iran. And so this is all very interesting while we see what's also going on with Russia. And Trump keeps going outside of state and even outside of Wickoff, or maybe in conjunction with Wickoff, to talk about, to send people to do these messages. And what do we have now that's happened today? We have Sergei Lavrov, of course, the foreign minister of Russia, saying that peace talks are going to resume with Ukraine to take place in Istanbul coming on June 2nd, so on Monday. And they're going to continue these peace talks, but it's really a memorandum of intent by Russia saying that this is what we need to happen. And what I thought was really interesting is we had Franklin Graham. Okay, I don't know if you remember back in the day, Billy Graham used to be a bit of a messenger for different U.S. Purposes in his evangelical trips to places, right? Because we had, of course, Putin refused to meet in the Vatican for the peace talks, meeting in Istanbul. But Franklin Graham went and met with Zelensky, okay? And he did a prayer, of course, for peace. But however, all right, we had him speak to Zelensky. I think that's very interesting and poignant and worth noting. That then after that, okay, because what was happening right before that was we have imminently, okay, the Zelensky cabal, okay, let's just call it that, the Pilgrim Society, the EU cabal, pushing to take, and the money that's been seized, the $300 billion of assets from Russia, 200 billion of it is sitting in the Euroclear system, okay, out of Europe, connected to the Bank of International Settlements, and they were going to liquidate 200 billion that they could get their hands on to keep fighting against Russia. Okay, Franklin Graham visits, talks to Zelensky, Rubio, then of course after that talks to Lavrov, and now they're saying, okay, we'll resume these peace talks after the attempted assassination on Putin last week. And of course, there's been 2,300 drone strikes by Ukraine deep into Russia in the last 3 weeks. And there was 40 drones involved in the attempted assassination on Putin. And this gets all into Trump's realignment, geopolitical realignment. And so I think these things are all interconnected. That's just, the way my brain works. And that now we see, of course, Lavrov speaks with Rubio. We're going to present this memorandum of what we demand. I'll put on the glasses and we'll get into it. But it looks like the memorandum is going to involve what they've always been saying, of course, from Russia, which is that they want the end of the sanctions to begin immediately. They want Ukraine neutrality, absolutely no NATO in Ukraine. The buffer zone that they've been kind of pushing out there in the Donetsk, especially now, in their forces going forward, they're trying to uh, to expand that buffer zone. They want safety for the Russians living in Ukraine. And that is, of course, because how did this kick off after the coup led by the Biden regime back? Well, it was Obama's regime, but it was, Biden. Um, the Maidan coup, the Nazi supported coup. There, what did they do? They arrested the Russian connected mayors of all these areas of the Donbass, etc. They arrested them. They banned the Russian language. They banned Orthodox Christianity, the Russian Orthodox Christianity. They arrested the Orthodox priests in that area. So he's saying we want safety for Russian Ukrainians. We want the return of our frozen assets. Thank you very much. Hence, as I said, I wonder about this Franklin Graham visit. And as they were about to liquidate those assets and use them for more weapons, okay, as Merz, Prime Minister out of Germany, spoke out of his turn there, I think he should get some very big, trouble for what he said in almost creating World War III, saying we're about to release massive amounts of long-range missiles to Ukraine to bomb deep into Russia. Excuse me, and and that they will probably keep the acquired territory that they have conquered in Ukraine. And so this is very interesting to see what's going to happen there on the 2nd. And this also, of course, under the lineman here is the deal that Russia is making with the U.S. Okay, this is the other side of the talks with Wickoff. Rubio there, interesting what's going on with him. We'll get into him much more in the coming weeks, and we'll talk about him a little bit today as well. But this memorandum is going to be the key thing here. And Trump very much is realigning. Okay, he's realigning what is going to happen with Russia, because Russia wants a deal with the U.S. that isn't just about the Ukraine deal, the earth minerals, all of that, and basically America kind of running Ukraine for a while, okay, to ensure the peace through economic means. But this is about an economic deal with Russia and the U.S. And Trump realigning here in this, what is his plan to do a geopolitical change. And when we look at this, we have to look at what's the reality. Okay, what has happened here? What has happened is we've had the globalists, all of them. I've described them so many times on this channel. We know who they are, the cartel Babylon globalists, intent on genociding 8 billion people, want their 500 million, that just happens to be the exact number of the who are the elites in the world, to exist on this planet, and how they have decimated Europe and brought in the Muslim invasion, attempting to do the same thing in the U.S., that they have destroyed Europe, which was usually our who we would feel akin with, and that Trump is, I believe, realigning to make a geopolitical alliance with Russia. And I believe that Russia, when we think of who's on whose border, well, in Alaska, across the Bering Strait, there's Russia right there. Who was it? The former governor of Alaska there. She was always saying, "Oh, you can just throw a stone, hit Russia." Well, yeah, it's right there, and they have like 9 military bases right there on our border, right? That is very close, much closer than Europe, and it also has to do with the Arctic in this geopolitical hemispheric defense that Trump is trying to enact and put in place. That gets into Greenland, okay? It gets into the Arctic and the importance of the Arctic. it gets into Canada. And of course, Trump has made, again, more comments in the last couple of days of, oh, we're going to have the, I've offered the Golden Dome, and the Golden Dome, it's not because he loves gold, although he does. It's because it is a array of space-based solar panel collectors that are golden. They're gold because they are collecting solar energy. All right, they rely on solar energy from the sun. Okay, direct from the sun, beam down from space. Okay, and this is going to replace all of our actual electric infrastructure. So this energy dominance thing is going to become moot, as this golden dome or this space-based solar energy is going to become the energy of the future. However, that's an aside. But he's saying to Canada, we can have, you can pay $61 billion for this Golden Dome protection, shoot down hypersonic missiles, it can do everything, blah, blah, blah. It can be great for free energy, but it also can be great as a directed energy weapon to hit, a singular target as small as a person, or torch anything it wants to. So, yeah. But as we look at this, Canada, he says, or you can become the 51st state and then you'll get it for free and we'll protect you, right? And so Canada, I'm calling it Canada now, right, because of Mark Carney and his, former head of the Bank of England, right, and his massive know-how. He's a economic superpower there with the King of England, with Charles. We had Charles come and visit Canada the other day, and reading their constitution, reading the rights of Canadians, and just fully, Canada is a free country and all this baloney, when it's absolutely not. It's a total dominion of the King of England. And it's very interesting to have him do that show of power as Trump is continuing to push this, right? And the attempt, of course, to create an alliance, if not an outright, um, have Greenland join the United States, right? And Denmark saying, oh, that's okay, we might be on board with that. But that's all iffy now, as this situation with Europe going against the US, Trump being so clear that the EU was created as a way to create a block, an economic block. What are we seeing now? But the massive economic block, as we have 1 trillion at least in deficits, of trade deficits, that they were trying to, of course, block the trade tariffs that McKinley was killed for, that Andrew Jackson was using as well. And so as we look, and what used to actually be the way that America made money before the Federal Reserve, the creature of Jekyll Island, came and introduced this stolen banking system in America to, of course, tax us instead of taxing other countries, right? The income tax, etc. So when we look at this with Canada, and we look at Trump coming out again and saying that this has to do with the geopolitical. He's trying to realign a hemispheric defense, okay, against the CCP, against the globalists. And in my guesstimation, or in my gut feeling, this alliance with Russia is really crucial, because it gets into the Arctic, and the Arctic is really the new frontier here that is so important for everything to do with, of course, energy, minerals, all of that. But it's also a frontier in the sense that it is, we share those borders with Russia. You look at, like, the Siberian Sea, the East Siberian Sea. There's all kinds of legends there too, which are amazing. Things like Hyperborea, right? Hyperborea. There's people like Alexander Dugin, I've talked about on this channel, who, is one of the head philosopher sociologists there. In massively, his daughter was killed a year ago. That in a BOM being of a car by a moped that was supposed to kill him, killed his daughter instead. But he's been a huge Russian nationalist, talking about, oh, the origins of the Russian people, and they came from Hyperborea, right? What is this Hyperborea? We get into, of course, also the theory of hollow Earth, and the magnetic pole versus true north versus the real pole, all of that. Okay, but there is something going on in the Arctic. Okay, we know there's something huge going on in the Antarctic, right? We know there's like massive globalist, Nazi originally, globalist, outer space, serious anomalies, and not only that, but huge directed energy weapons based in South America, excuse me, the Antarctic, off the coast of South America, right? But in the Arctic, we have a whole other world that's opening up. And Trump has purchased something like a dozen icebreakers from Finland to be produced in the next couple years to join the Arctic frontier and get up into, can they open up an Arctic pathway of trade? But I also think back to this thing of when I mentioned Alexander Dugin, it's this situation of, Catherine the Great, back where she was sending people up into the Arctic, the origins of the Russian people and all of this, trying to, make Russia great again back then. And there's this myth or ancient history of something to do with the Hyperboreans that everybody from way back to, I think, Aristotle and way back in those days, they were talking about these people who live forever from Hyperborea up in the Arctic, and they supposedly had the fountain of youth and all of this. So very interesting, because then after that it came this discovery that also there was something really deadly there, something really deadly that could be a weapon of mass destruction out of the Arctic. And don't go there, don't look for those Hyperboreans, all of this. So it's very interesting, very exciting, but that's secondary to the situation of that Trump is doing this reorganization of what is the hemispheric defense of the United States based on the globalist attempt to annihilate this country. And so he, I believe, absolutely, and his team are tasked with making a deal with Russia, not just Ukraine. It's a deal with Russia that is economic, and that is about future pacts that are coming to do with economic development, to do with all of these things. And so I believe we're going to see that coming out as soon as peace is made there. And now that the hype around Zelensky still saying, as he said to Viktor Orban, when Orban was the prime minister of Hungary, or the president of Hungary, where, by the way, if you have 4 children in Hungary, you don't have to pay income tax. There shouldn't be any income tax, but that's interesting. He said that Zelensky, when he talked to Zelensky said, I have no need for peace because we have the upper hand. Time is on our side. We have the military might. We can keep fighting. And he said, I also talked to Russia, but they said the same thing. But of course, Russia is right in this situation, because in the reality, Russia could crush Ukraine easily and simply, okay, with their hypersonic missiles, and they don't do so. They very much err on the side of caution in what they do, even when we had the attempted assassination on Putin last week. And that's when Trump said, I don't know what's going on, but something's gone on. Something happened to this guy, talking about Putin. And of course, feigning ignorance about the assassination attempt, all of it. But it's all coming to the fore, and we're going to see what happens on Monday as those peace talks commence. The memorandum is presented, and can they end this? And can we, as a country, embrace this possibility of an alliance with Russia? Because when we look at it, we look at what Europe has done by Islamifying and destroying Europe with Islam and theism and no-go zones and attacks on their own people, and the fact that there is no real culture there that you can access in the ways that for centuries what was wonderful, okay, was to go and discover the beauty and wonder of Europe, and now it's over. It's over and it's destroyed. And the same thing, our number one enemy isn't Russia or the CCP, it's the Pilgrim Society out of the city of London that controls the CCP, for the most part, controls um, um, what's going on with the Royals, and then their arm, MI6, and their derivatives that do all of the subterfuge and the triple agents and their works with Mossad and Israel and the creation of Israel. And so when we see this long history of the attacks against Russia, it has been really this massive long, and I will put the Rothschilds in here, way back to whether it was creating Bolshevism and the attack on Russia, and then simultaneously creating Israel, the creation of Israel, the Balfour Declaration. I don't want to just go through all of the stuff, but we have the situation where all of this came to be, where the globalists were taking their power, coming out of massive Masonic and satanic mystery school type people who wanted to take globalist power of the world, right? We just had Macron the other day do a massive power play on masonry. I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, where he made a big power show on a huge Masonic lodge there in um, in Paris, and he came out today, which is really crazy, or it was the last couple of days, where he said that he's crediting Freemasonry as a spiritual guiding force for him. And he is saying that he is celebrating that spiritual force out of Freemasonry for helping France and the countries in Europe to start enacting euthanasia policies, right? Wow. Start enacting euthanasia policies. I'll link it below. You can read it yourself. Okay. Literally the guy who got la slap, right, from his daddy wife um, last week, he is saying that they're going to start with the euthanasia policies as they've been doing in Canada. And they're breaking through in the EU with these same policies um, to slaughter the autistic, the mentally ill, the mentally retarded, and whoever they want, basically. That we have in Canada, speaking of, in this satanic death necrophilic culture, we have in Canada the same thing happen where a father is battling the attempt to suicide his daughter, who's autistic, who was processed somehow through the MAID system. The MAID, they call it the MAID, right, which is the Medical Assistance in Dying program in Canada, where in Health Canada is pushing this, where his autistic daughter, who is his daughter, who he loves, um, because of the medical system knowing everything about you and having control over your life, is basically processing his daughter through this system, saying, "Oh, she qualifies to be suicided." Right? They put you in that sarcophagus, that machine it's biodegradable, so they get to bury you in it too, right? Where they choke you out and kill you, and then bury you in your biodegradable pod there in in Canada, right? And so yeah, so all of the billions, well, I'd say billions, but all of the definitely hundreds of millions, okay, children who have been vaccine damaged so drastically that they are severely autistic or extremely mentally ill, can't live on their own. So after the big pharma being run by these same people, these evil devils, okay, Gates et al. We're going to get into it here, but what we see there is that after destroying their brains and bodies with these chemicals and the vaccines, now they're saying we just want to kill them all, 1939 Nazi style. All right, that's what we want to do, just as they did, starting in Austria and in Germany with the killing of the mentally retarded children. That's what they want to do, and because they can't afford. We attempted this genocide, but we can't afford the treatment of these severely autistic people. We can't afford the treatment, and so we're going to mate them. We're going to mate them. Okay, so that's going on in Canada. And so it's very interesting because we have some great success just after all that, horrible news. We also have great success, which is that HHS, meaning RFK, has done an incredible thing here today where he's canceled the 700 million of our taxpayer dollar money contract with Moderna. With Moderna, that evil thing coming out of Boston that had products to nothing, and somehow, came out with these shots during the Franken V. Well, that $700 million contract through HHS has been canceled for the bird flu vaccine by Bobby Kennedy out of HHS. Big applause there, big ups, very great, because Kennedy is doing great things, and it just keeps rolling out. And we'll keep talking about him. He basically said, in an interview recently, he said, the mainstream media salaries are paid by Big Pharma. He's trying to make illegal pharma ads on cable TV. There's only 2 countries that allow pharma ads. And he said basically mainstream media, cable news couldn't exist without pharma ads, as we all know, but it's great he's talking about it. He said 40% of US kids have chronic health illnesses, and that autism is 1 in 31 children. So it's very good as Trump is leveraging his new executive order on favored country status for the U.S. He's basically saying that if the U.S. is paying $240 for a drug and EU is only paying $20 for the same drug, which is the reality, then everybody's going to pay $120 for the drug or less. We're not doing this anymore, or we drive down. He's pushing Europe and the other countries to join him to drive down big pharma profits and prices. Okay. And we also have this great news, as I've been talking about the wonderful things happening for animals. Okay. As they're getting rid of the animal testing. And for me, that's just so wonderful. That's such a disgusting, awful, stain on humanity for this awful, killing and torturing of animals in science, in drugs, in everything, products. It could be hair products, makeup, whatever it is. But the Navy, okay, is now also joining the fray here. We have, let me see if I can get him, the naval commander, Secretary of the Navy John C. Phelan, has put into effect the ban on cat and dog testing. Isn't that fantastic? I love this. The ban on cat and dog testing, right? Think of Fauci with his tests on the beagles. Fauci with the fake pardon, with the auto pen. Not going to protect you, Fauci. And we've got more to talk about on that. But we have an organization called the White Coat Waste Project, WCW, high-profile campaign. It was largely amplified by Laura Loomer, and we always love the work that she does. But they had a $10 million contract with the Navy at the University of Pittsburgh. We know how they love Pittsburgh. It's like this deep state, just massive enclave there in Pennsylvania. But they shut that down. So no more torturing of dogs and cats for the Navy. And it was crazy tests that had nothing to do with anything. They never do. And as Bobby Kennedy has said, animal testing is totally being, we're getting rid of it. It equal in any way, anything that's good for humans. It's not reliable. There's no reason for it, and we love this. And so as we see Judge Jeanine Pirro being sworn in yesterday, she is, of course, going to be the interim U.S. attorney in D.C. once they try to stop Ed Martin. And Ed Martin, as we saw the appellate court today, stopping the prevention of the reciprocal tariffs. Ed Martin is being nominated to the appellate court. There's an opening, and Trump's like, hey, finish up all these pardons, of which there's a ton, and finish setting up this weaponization of government offices across the country. And this will be one thing that will help Tina Peters as well. And of course, Mike Lindell's massive DOM-INION trial starts on a Monday in Denver. And if you can get there, please go. He needs support. If you're in local area there in Colorado, go and support this trial. I'll see if I can link below the location. And because, yeah, Lindell wants people there, right? It is a jury trial. But however, what we have there is, of course, with Pirro being sworn in, and she's saying, you know, there's no more mercy for criminals in DC. Well, those criminals that might be the ones to come in before her could be the could be um, uh, the doctor for Joe Biden, right? The doctors being asked into questioning by Congress. The doctor for Joe Biden, plus those junior staffers that have been coming out all in the news. Of course, Bernal, you know, chief of staff to Jill Biden, is being showcased because he was a major sexual harasser for entertainment purposes only of the young men staffers there, I guess, as a gay man, and he was, you know, supposedly really awful. So they're signaling him out. However, if they subpoena them soon because they're dragging their feet coming in to testify, that could be Jean Pirro as U.S. Attorney in D.C. some of her first cases. And we hope that it does happen because these pardons, of course, are becoming less and less valid as Hunter Biden. It's coming out. It's coming out slowly, but I think it's going to come out that Hunter Biden pardoned himself. Okay, pardoned him. And as we look at these no oath treasonous criminals that were running the Biden government, we have to look at some, you know, they're let's just say flipping up. Okay, they're flipping up. They're going after these staffers because, you know, we've got Dunn and Bernal, et cetera, where really we're getting into rights. Okay, and I've been talking about rights for a long time here. Everybody's like, it's Klain, it's Klain. Klain was there the first 2 years as chief of staff for Biden, but Reince came in for the second two. And that's where things really picked up speed. And what did we see with the auto pen? And what is the massive treason of this is it became a massive money laundering machine and probably a pay for hire situation. But the people operating the auto pen or gaining from it, I think Podesta, what was it 200 or 400 billion dollars? Podesta as climate czar taking over from Kerry, that got deposited in all these accounts at the end of Biden's term. That, you know, Warren's being pegged, Pelosi, all of these people, Schumer, but I would say Mayorkas. I would say let's look at Blinken, but Reince, okay, and Jill Biden, and so we'll see what goes on here because it's all getting very exciting. And so I wanted to bring to attention another thing that came out in the last couple of days, which is USDA whistleblower from the Biden administration came out and talked about the American Rescue Plan, because we know that Rollins at the Secretary of Agriculture, she's doing a great job of getting rid of all the DEI and taking care of it. But at the USDA, the American Rescue Plan, it's come out that the Biden USDA would only pay off loans in this relief program for non-white farmers. So your intergenerational farmers suffering under massive, after the COVID assault on our country economically, they would only pay off non-white farmers whether or not they had produced anything or not. But it's not only that bad, it's that they would pay 120%, okay, of loan repayment. So if they had been given a USDA loan and that farmer couldn't, you know, grow anything, this is like South Africa, you know, the slow roll into what is South Africa, that they would pay them 120%. Okay, so they'd get their 20% of the value of that land of the loan would get paid to them in cash. Okay, so that's what's been going on, and that's the massive grift that we're talking about. And so, yeah, we're you know, it's all getting uncovered. So have faith, hold on, and trust, because you know, as you know, we're all freaking out about Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. Oh, there's no there with this, that, or the other thing. We did have Bongino coming out and saying, "Hey, we just found a whole room in the FBI headquarters of of James Comey's papers having to do with him when he was director, to do with all manner of corruption, to with the things that have been going on. And we have Kash Patel coming out today and saying we're about to do a huge release on stuff to do with the origins of J6, what went down there. That's huge. But the James Comey stuff, and all the copycat attackers, and threats coming out of the 8647, we know we want a 4847, but he's saying that's massive as well. But these Comey papers, again, uh, did they pick up Comey when the Secret Service picked him up, and did he say, hey, here's where you can find all this stuff, and give me some immunity, right? We'll see. We'll find out what's going to come down from this. And of course we have we have sorry, I'm forgetting his name. I'll get there. I'll get back there in a second. I don't have it in front of me, but there is, stuff. But anyway, I'll move to this. Tommy Robinson got released, amazingly, survived his stint in the Muslim-dominated prison where they were keeping him in solitary confinement. Tommy Robinson, who had more single-handedly brought the Pakistani rape gang issue to the forefront in the Muslim-occupied UK. And just an aside, we had J.D. Vance come out recently and say, hey, when we look at the most serious threat of a nuclear exchange coming from a Muslim country, he said, I would say that would be the UK, okay, because it's dominated by Muslims in control, and they have nukes. And more than any other threat, he worries about that. I thought that was an interesting take, and very poignant and very true. As the Pilgrim Society is ramping up something, as we're seeing Basria, the head of Mossad, going to DC these last few days, meeting with Ratcliffe, meeting, I believe, with Rubio, talking about all of this that went down with the stopping of Israel doing this attack on Iran. But one little aside with Tommy Robinson, when he got out of prison, he immediately put on a MAGA hat, MEGA, Make England Great Again. I thought that was fantastic. But back to Basria or Barnea, excuse me, David Barnea, the director of Mossad, meeting with J.D. Vance and Ratcliffe, the CIA, and Ron Dermer, the Israeli Minister for Strategic Affairs, coming over to talk about all this as well. With they killed supposedly the new leader. There's always a new leader there of Hamas that they then kill. Mohammed Sinwar was supposedly killed by Mossad during these meetings as they happened, and then it was, okay, you're going to agree to these deals. However, these meetings between CIA historically, okay, and I don't trust Ratcliffe. I want to, I wish I could, but I don't see any change in the CIA. I don't see him doing anything besides retiring 1,200 people. So until I see something different, there's nothing to report, except that in the past, and past proves present, is that we see, usually if the Mossad comes to DC and meets with the CIA or the deep state players, we get an FEFE, an FALSE, FLAG, that comes soon after. And we know that we had Israel agree to this 60-day peace, time. And so it just, it gets my spidey senses moving of, could there be an FF where they're framing something on Iran or somewhere else to bump up some kind of military response? Because we also had the former head of Mossad come out in the last couple days and say that he believes, let me get this, that he believes, sorry, let me just find it, that he believes that Israel will not let the U.S. off the case. It's Mir Dagan. I'm probably not saying his name right. He was the former head of Mossad, And he says basically that Israel is planning to entrap the U.S. into its war design plans, that it's absolutely still a thing. And so to me, again, that reinforces this FF issue that we could be facing in the near future. So when Trump is saying, as he's pushing for peace here with Russia and creating this new geopolitical alliance, he was asked straight out, why don't you put more sanctions on Russia? And he's like, I don't want to put more sanctions on Russia. He's like, I don't want to. I don't want to. That's why. Because we're making a deal. And when they, as Zelensky's trying to steal the 300 billion in assets or the 200 billion that's in Euroclear, he is basically saying, no, we're not doing this. And secondary sanctions are moot anyway. They've sanctioned everything they can. They start putting secondary sanctions. That's like, oh, any banks from here or there, the CCP or anybody doing anything with with Russia, we're going to sanction them. We're going to sanction this. And they create this morass that, or all it does is create more mayhem as Trump is trying to massively do these trade deals. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And I'm going to be leaving it there today. We have so much more that is going on that I will get into tomorrow, and we'll continue on this trajectory of watching unfold the reclaiming of America, right? The renewing of America and what it means for America to be finally having, I guess, the third president in our history capable of making massive changes to reclaim this country from globalist, the Freemasonic, Jesuit, Zionist, the Pilgrim Society, City of London attempts to take it over and steal everything from it. So it is a great, great time to be alive and be part of the solution, be in the arena. So being active locally is key. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I will ask that if you found something helpful or explanatory in this video that you don't get elsewhere, or even if you do, but if you want to support the channel, there's ways to do so below. And I so appreciate your help and support as we try to still regain coming back from the, of course, debanking. And we're going to see through the Genius Act. I'll talk tomorrow. They're making inroads with the Genius Act in the Senate to stop debanking, okay, to put on MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, some laws to stop them from debanking people for their political beliefs. That would have been nice 3 years ago, right? But any who's you whats, thanks so much for watching. I will just plug my wonderful sponsor, c60evo.com. Here it's getting to the end of the month. And I want to remind everybody I give away 2 bottles of these wonderful organic olive oil C60 Evo capsules, the ESS 60 molecule, made in the best lab in the world in Houston, Texas, American made, American source, C60. And it is just, people can't say enough ways for your mental clarity. It gets into your mitochondria and your trillions of cells, and it cleans up your mitochondria. It goes through the blood-brain barrier and helps you to clean out the gunge from your brain. All of that shedding and spreading we've been going through, or what's coming raining down on us from the skies. And hopefully we can be stopping that geoengineering soon too, Trump. But yeah, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. And if you've ever contributed to the channel or you decide to do so now, you get entered into a giveaway. I give away 2 bottles every month. And also you get 15% off, 15% off. The Big C clinics fighting that Big C evil that's been largely massively manufactured by Big Pharma, Rockefeller, Deep State, Big Med. They're using it by the caseload, okay? And it's just an incredible thing to add to your regimen for really deep health. Deep health, cellular health is health. It's everything. If you support the channel, you get 15% off, and you get a separate email and code sent to you and link. So thanks so much for watching, folks. You are free. Prayer is paramount. Just pray, 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 because we have so much good happening. Don't get into the doom sayers. It's not It's been doom. It's been doom. It's been doom. We can only go up from there. Don't believe the people who say Trump is a traitor, Trump is folding, Trump is this. Trump is managing a sinking Titanic like a boss. He's a dog with a bone. The bone is America, and like everything else that Trump has done, he's not going to let go, okay, until he makes it a success. And so it's up to us to take that baton and live by that example and do it in our local communities. Everything you can, whether it's town council, the teachers union councils, we're involved in getting Islam out of your town council, running for county recorder, running for county clerk, running for your state's Senate or House. Everything, anything, okay? Having coffee houses in your neighborhood to discuss things, doing offline get-togethers where there's no screens, okay? They're doing them in Europe. It's a huge trend, right? No screens. Get together and have an off-screen. We're going to hang out, whether it's a barbecue, it's a whatever, phones at the door, no phones. It's a get to know you, let's be human again situation, right? It's summertime, best time to do it. So you are free. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.